Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at Twisted Metal. This is actually the first in the series of the Twisted Metal franchise that was actually released on the PlayStation way back in 1995. This was actually one of the earlier titles released on the PlayStation in general within the first few months of the console's launch. So this game actually is a combat kind of driving game where you're kind of driving around like different types of levels, arenas, where the main goal is to literally just blow the crap pretty much out of anything that actually moves. It's actually a fun game. It's if you're into combat kind of style driving games where you're just literally shooting and smashing into things, this would be right up your street. I remember actually when I first played this game, funny enough, I didn't actually get to play this game at first. I actually got to play the sequel, Twisted Metal 2 World Tour, and that is considered one of the best, if not the best game in the franchise, hands down, and it's a fantastic title. I didn't get to play this one first off, but I do remember the very first time I ever did play the PlayStation, I was down at one of my friend Mark's house, and he had a load of demos, and on a load of the demo discs there was also like rolling demos that they used to call them, like video demos, and on some of the video demos they actually had a rolling demo of Twisted Metal, this one here, the first one. And I remember actually going through watching all the video demos thinking some of the games were cool, and I do remember actually seeing this one here, and I remember saying to my mate at the time, and he was like, you know what, this one actually looks really cool. And he says, yeah, he says, I actually kept trying to see if I can actually get it, because it actually just looks a lot of fun. It's very dark, it's very gritty, it definitely is very adrenaline fueled, it's just chaos just throughout the board. This one here was definitely a really good title for the early days of the PlayStation, because it really showed the capabilities of the console and what was actually possible. And even though the PlayStation had literally only been released only a few months, it was amazing to see the type of games that were being released on the system. Like you had everything like from arcade titles like Ridge Racer, you had Destruction Derby, you had Wipeout, you had fighting games like Tekken, and you also had the likes of this here, which was just added to the mix. There was pretty much something there for everybody, which was quite incredible. Now I actually did manage to get my hands on this a good few years later. I'd say about 10 or 15 years ago. I went on a mad spree on looking for old PS1 games. I was collecting them at the time and trying to recollect a lot of old games that I either missed or didn't have, and I did come across this on eBay, and I managed to get my hands on it, and I actually managed to get a really good solid copy of it that was clean and that was actually well looked after, which is actually hard to find. And especially now with the likes of, if you're a games collector, trying to find likes of games like this here that are actually in very good condition, you'll actually pay a high price for them now, because the price of older games has definitely gone up, so they have in value, and quite rightly so. If you know they demand a good price, and if they're looked after, they definitely are deserving of that price, in my opinion. But at the same time, you kind of had to go through a lot of ones where you were lucky to actually get a half decent copy for the money, and you know, if at least if the game actually worked, because back then we didn't have access to the likes of like emulators and stuff like that like we do today, so you still had to rely on the old PlayStation hardware. And one of the biggest gripes was the likes of the PlayStation. If the PlayStation itself, if the laser on it hadn't been worn out, either the disc, what used to always happen, the discs would usually always be scratched to bits, like, so more often than not the games would be barely playable. They'd always be scratching, they'd be always stuttering, it'd be hard to load. So if you did manage to get a good copy of a game, you were doing really well. But I managed to get the copy of this game, and I remember playing it, and I wanted to see the comparisons between this and the second one. It is actually a really good game, don't get me wrong, but it is bettered by the second one, because the second one does have a lot of bigger levels, more open type of levels, and there's a lot of exploration elements in the original game. Although there is one or two of the levels in the sequel that's from this game here that you can actually play in the sequel, which was pretty cool. It was a neat feature to actually have in it, to play some of these older levels. The one thing I will say about it is the control system in it is very, very fiddly, because unlike other games, now you could change the control system, but the standard controls, you couldn't just use X or square to like move or accelerate or brake. You had to use the direction buttons like up and down, which actually left for very, very fiddly kind of movement. and more often than not you could never really direct the car where you wanted it to go, and you'd always kind of miss a beat, especially when you're trying to shoot an opponent or trying to take someone out. And especially when the later levels, when you have more opponents, you could be in the middle of trying to nearly win in against somebody, only to mess up your controls and miss a shot or miss a rocket, and then someone comes in and literally just blows you to hell. So you're just kind of just, you know, but that's the luck of the draw. It is a quirky kind of fun type of game. It does have its flaws, like I said, the controls is very, very fiddly, but that is pretty much the major gripe with it. But if you could actually get around this, it was actually a very, very worthwhile title worth playing. It's good fun, and it's good. It's a really good multiplayer game as well, especially if you're playing with a group of your mates. This here was actually definitely a good title to actually play for sure. You definitely want to have a few goes of it. You'd want to keep trying until you got further into the campaign, or even like if you were playing like say the 2-player against someone, it was actually quite fun. Because I remember in the second game when I used to play it, it was so much fun because you could even play through the entire career campaign with 2 people as well. So myself and my mates and my brothers used to play that a ton, and it's so much fun with it. It was such a fun game to play. So it was interesting to go back to play the original and see the comparisons between the two. It is still a very, very good game, even though there isn't as much levels and stuff in it compared to the second one. But it is what it is, and for an early PlayStation 1 title, it is actually a really good experience. Although, like most games back then, the control systems were quite vague, and there were some games like this here were difficult to pick up, but like I said, if you stuck with it and you mastered it, you would actually have a good experience and you'd actually enjoy it. But there definitely is a learning curve with this game, because a lot of it is more down to luck rather than actual skill. Definitely on my part, because I was okay at the second game, but it was definitely not that good at this one. And going back to revisit it, yeah, I haven't really much improved since. So, but that's just the fun of it. Like I do love just going back and just revisiting these old games, because they kind of just tell a story. They always have something unique about them that just really stands out. That's why I love the PlayStation 1 so much, is because even though games may not have been perfect, like they were flawed, but they offered something unique. And the cool thing is, even for the early days, like I mentioned earlier in the video, with the early days of the PlayStation, developers were always trying to do something different. They were always trying like loads of cool concepts, stuff you would never really see today. Because even though there's probably more games being released today on modern consoles, it's amazing to think that a lot of the games, they try a lot of similar type of tactics and similar type of methods. They don't really go outside their boundaries and try different things. But then I suppose a lot of the games today are actually inspired by all these kind of makeshift games as well. So it kind of is what it is. This game did actually go on to spawn a number of different sequels within the PlayStation. Some of them were actually released in likes of Europe, but other ones weren't actually. We didn't get in Europe. Like after Twisted Metal 3, there was other ones that were released, we didn't actually get them. They were in other regions. But it also did spawn other sequels then, say on likes of the PlayStation 2, and even a remake of the series on the PlayStation 3, which was also another good title as well. So Twisted Metal series is a very, very popular franchise, but I think the second one, I think in the series, is definitely considered to be probably the most popular one, and I'll be honest, it's my favourite one because it's the one I would have played the most. I actually loved that game. I thought it was brilliant. But this here is a really, really cool game at the same time, and it kind of shows what led on to the sequels after that, so it is interesting to go and see it. So I highly recommend, if you haven't played Twisted Metal or you're yet to experience the franchise, definitely give this a go and go through the catalogue of games if you can, because they are worthwhile playing, and just to experience the early games on the PlayStation catalogue and just see the differences between them and the sequels. So what are your thoughts on Twisted Metal? Did you enjoy it, or have you played any of the games in the franchise? Make sure to let me know down in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be updated whenever I release future content, and also feel free to share the video, as I am going to be re-exploring a lot of these old classics on the PlayStation and share my thoughts and experiences with everyone. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.